All right, geographers. In this video, my plan is to simply open up ArcGIS Pro. Just open it up, point out a few key things, and discuss them so that you're not horribly overwhelmed when you first open up this software. All right, so I've double clicked on the thing, open it up, and we get this first screen, right? Our little ArcGIS Pro welcome screen or whatever they call it. And as I believe I've had you do before, what I tend to do is I just default to doing this blank templates map right here, just because it's simple. And so that's how we'll do it. There are a whole host of different things you can do from here, but for now, what we're going to start with is every time we start, we're just going to click on map right here. And I just left clicked once. And it said, okay, you want to create this new project? All right, well, what do you want to call it? Now, what I'm going to do, just to keep this straight in my mind, like I mentioned before, that you can use the term junk to just kind of play around with stuff and delete it later. For this, instead of doing that, I'm just going to call this opening ArcGIS. Okay? Now, one key thing here in doing this that maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't, I didn't use a space at all in the name here. Okay? Because I mean, what you could do technically is something like that and have a space, and it would work and you could get away with it. But if you're a real hardcore GIS person, you know that spaces can never be trusted. I mean, maybe technically they can at this point. I don't know what the official word is, but it's historically, over the past decades in working with this stuff, the way all of the code was set up for the program itself, if you had a space in some kind of file name, it could destroy everything. We'd be working along, everything seemed good, and then all of a sudden something wouldn't work. It's because you had a space. So all of us GIS people, we got in the habit of not using spaces. And you can do it the way I did it here, where I'm kind of separating words to make it easier to read with a capital letter, right? Capital O, capital A, and then the capital GIS. The other thing we tend to do is we do an underscore in between words. So it's just that shift and the little, I don't know, it's the underscore one. It's next to the zero in the top of your keyboard. Typically, after zero, we have the two little dashes. Hit shift and it gives you this underscore. It doesn't matter which way you do it. Right? Either way works, but it's a way to make this easier for we humans to read, but at the same time, the computer doesn't freak out over this stuff. And for this class, I mean, when you leave here and when you go in and do your own stuff, do whatever. Do what makes you feel good. But for this class, we're just going to save everything in this default projects folder that ArcGIS puts together. All right, and that'll make it easier to just find the stuff we're working on. And what you will discover as you work with GIS is that you're going to produce a lot of things, whether it's data files, maps, a whole host of different things on your computer. And if you're not saving them in a deliberate place and in some place where you know where it actually is, where you know where to go look for this thing, it's going to be a nightmare. All right, so we'll be really attentive to where we save things on our computer as we're working with this stuff. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit OK. And then it'll think, and it's producing stuff. We'll actually get in to ArcGIS Pro. And this little map window thing here. Many of you, I'm sure, when you were actually installing this initially and clicked on to make sure it all worked, you got something like this. One difference might be these, what are they called? Panes, right? Yes, panes. And another thing, just for reference, I'm using Maribeth Price's Chapter 1 from what is it? It's Mastering ArcGIS Pro, and I supplied this image to you so you can see this. But it's in Chapter 1. It's on page 20, and it's just an image of ArcGIS Pro with some things pointed out. It should look relatively similar. Don't get hung up if things aren't exactly the same, since this thing was made and the what you're seeing on your computer. But so you can use that as a reference. But my point was things like these panes here. This is from what I was playing with earlier. So I'm actually going to close this stuff for now. Yours might look more like this. I don't know. Maybe you had a default pane on the side here. Don't worry about it. Don't get hung up on if yours looks just slightly different from what I'm doing. Just go with it, right? The only problem is if I say, okay, click here, go into this, go into that, and you go to do that, and it doesn't exist, right? Then we have a problem. But if there's some extra things there that you have, that I don't have, or I have that you don't have, don't worry about it. If it doesn't get in the way of us accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish, don't worry about it. Okay? All right, there's little lesson 1. So let's go through. Let's see. How do I want to do? Well, okay. We'll talk about this. On the left, this is our contents. It's a pane. Yes, we're calling everything a pane. Everything used to be windows. Now it's a pane. Good Lord. This is just how technology works. All right. So apologies if I use some term that's horribly archaic, like something we used to say back in 2010. But this is just software speak and all that. So now we call it the contents pane. But this is an important. Say I wanted to call it a window. It's an important pane in ArcGIS because this is going to show us the different layers or feature classes that we bring in, and I'll get into exactly what we mean by feature class. This concept of layering and all of that, I'll explain that as we kind of work with this stuff. But effectively, what I'm saying is all of our data with which we are working in ArcGIS will be listed here in this contents pane. And we'll be able to do a whole host of things with the data by getting into the contents pane. In fact, quite often what we'll do, and this is just a good rule of thumb, I always say to geography students, GIS students, just when in doubt, right click. All right? If you can't remember exactly what to do with something or how to go about accomplishing something, right click on it. All right? So you like this, this world hillshade. And in fact, let me show what these are to start with before I start right clicking. Okay, so we have 2 things in our map. And these were just ArcGIS just threw these in here. Okay? And it looks just like a map, right? But if I uncheck this top one, the world topographic map, you see our labels go away, the pretty colors, and all we have left behind is world hillshade. And this hillshade referring to, in fact, let me zoom in, and I'll show you all how to do this. In fact, what I did, is I might as well show you all how to do this now, is I left click and hold, okay? So I press down the left click button on my mouse, like so, and I hold it, and I also hit the shift bar, and I hold that as well, okay? I think I have to keep holding it. All right, I don't always think about this, I just kind of do it. But if I do that, so I'm still holding shift, still holding left click, I get this little magnifying glass, shows up where my cursor is, right? And then if I just drag, still holding down the left click and the shift, it draws this box, you see, right? And wherever I draw this box, that's where it's going to be zooming into. So, it depends on where I want to go. If I want to get a little more into Southern California, voila. All right, but what we're looking at here, this hillshade, it's the elevation. It's a way to show the mountains and the valleys and things like that. We've got our coastal range, the Sierra Nevada, the transverse ranges, all of California, right? LA down here, Bakersfield in the Central Valley up here, Antelope Valley over here. That's what we are looking at here, right? And if I turn this back on, that brings it back, and oh, look at that. That's where the stuff is. Okay, so that's what I mean by layers, is that these are separate data layers that we can turn on, we can turn off, we can drag, put one on top of the other. Whatever I have on the bottom of this list will be drawn first, right? So if I actually clicked and dragged that over, see, I can't see this world topographic map at all because I'm covering it based on the hill shape. If I drag that back down, technically what I can do, if I uncheck this, you'll see the cool 3D look disappears, right? So this upper layer is a little transparent so that you can see what's underneath it, right? So in moving this stuff and changing this around, we can change what we're looking at. And as we'll learn later on, we'll change what we're actually messing around with and what we're analyzing and studying and all of that stuff. Okay, now this thing that's also on here, this default. In fact, let me just get into the greater Los Angeles area. In fact, let's just head toward downtown here. Don't worry about it if you're watching this and following along. If you don't zoom in here, you don't even have to be here. Go ahead and go someplace else in the world if you want. I'm just gonna look here. All right. So in this area, I've got the stuff, and you can see as I'm zooming in, it's changing the details. It's all based on these preloaded base maps. And if I go up here into, I believe this is the ribbon. Yes, the ribbons. That's what we call these up here. And I left click on map. All right. This base map here, that's what these are that I'm looking at. It's one of these base maps that Esri, the company that makes the software, and it's ESRI. It stands for Environmental Systems Research Institute. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's the exact one. And they used to be adamant about, you don't call us Esri, we are ESRI. And then to, I think, kind of be more kinder and gentler and less of a scary corporation, they just went for Esri. So I don't know what they like to be called now, but whatever. The people who make this software, make ArcGIS, they're supplying us with these base maps here, okay? So in this map ribbon, we've got a lot of different stuff that we can use to, let's just say, just to mess around with these base maps to start with. And to be clear, these base maps are useful, but we're going to get away from these. We're not going to rely on these things. We're better than that. We are professionals. We are true ArcGIS pros, as it were. So, we'll play around with this a little bit, but we'll learn how to bring in outside data and actually produce something that, that looks just as good as this, that we're proud of. But we can actually manipulate. We can ask questions of. This is it's the real stuff. Anybody can do this. Zoom in around this preloaded stuff. We're going to learn how to make our own cool GIS stuff. All right, but in terms of moving around here, I already showed you the shift and left click thing. But this, where it says explore, if I hover over it, I just take my mouse over there, quit moving it around. It shows you all of the different shortcuts we have, either with the mouse or with the keyboard itself here. And so that said, number one, if you're not working with a mouse, I know a lot of you have, working on a laptop, might be using the trackpad. I would highly encourage you to invest, the $3 or whatever it is in a just simple wired mouse that you can plug into your computer. You can also, I'm using a wireless mouse right now as I do this because I spent, $10 or $15 to not have a wire, not have one more wire on my desk. But I encourage you to do that. And I know for some of you, you like the trackpad. I know my own kids, yell at me and think mouses are stupid old man stuff. But honestly, when we're doing this kind of work, a mouse, I think, just makes your life easier. And one good example is to be able to, shift and left click and all that. It's just, you're using both hands here. Quite often, it can be a challenge. Also, let me hover over here again. Oh, come on, baby. Maybe if I go over here. There we go. See number 2, that little track wheel thing. It shows like zoom, rotate, tilt, if you're doing 3D stuff, but also it's just clicking that and holding it. Sometimes that allows you to pan in different windows and all that. Right click 3 is useful. Like there's a lot of stuff that's useful. And one thing, in fact, just the zoom here, what I can do with that rolling wheel is I can just go in, I can roll out, right, from that fixed area. Okay, so the mouse is nice, is what I'm saying. You also have a few other things. And these can be nice just as you're messing around here. Not so much this fix zoom in and zoom out. I mean, use it if you want. And experiment with these things. See what they do. But two things I like. Number one, I have this full extent. And this is just when I've done something terrible or I'm lost or I'm confused. You left click on that and it takes you out to the full extent of the data. All right, so in this case, it's the world. Maybe I didn't realize that. Maybe I went, whoa, wait a second, that's too much. Now I'm lost again. I want to go back to where I was. So what this is right here, this previous extent arrow, I left click on that. It brings me right back. Okay, and you can see also this go to the next extent would take me back out to the world where I was. And of course, as I change this, as I move stuff around, and then I'm zooming out like this, that's going to change what this whole previous extent means, right? As well as the next extent. But it's just kind of a nice thing so I can figure out where I am. I can get back to where I was or make sense of stuff. Okay, this bookmarks thing, we might use it. It's kind of nice. Sometimes if I'm working in multiple areas in, say, the state of California, and I can save bookmarks. I can make them. Let's say I want to have LA right there. So new bookmark, and I'll call it LA. I could type a description, but I'm not going to, and I can hit OK. And that way, sorry about that. Hope you didn't just throw up. I can be, I don't know, out here in the desert. I go, wait a second. Where's that thing? Oh, yeah, LA. Bring me right back there. Okay, and same deal too. If I supply you with something or someone else does, one of these map files here, and you're working through it, sometimes they're preloaded with these bookmarks to help you get to a specific location. You dig? Huh? Look at all this stuff. All right, so yes, we're just there. This X, maybe we'll deal with that, maybe not. I don't know, but that's just kind of getting around. So experiment with that stuff. Okay, then as far as this base map, as I said, we've got this preloaded one, but Esri offers a handful of these things. And I should also state that these are connected, to a server via the internet. These aren't actually downloaded on your computer. So you need an internet connection to be able to access these and to be able to move around. You can see on the far right, it does say download map to preserve this for an area if you're going to be away from the internet, have some issue or something like that. For the most part, it's not a problem these days. The age of Wi-Fi and all that stuff, but I think it's worth knowing. All right. So in here, you can click on any of these and they'll load up. Some are super cool. Some are not so cool. It's just kind of whatever. But you can like this first one, imagery. If I just left click and add that, it's either, and it's depending on the scale, it'll change. As I go ahead, you see that color change in there because it's zoom dependent or scale dependent, I should say. So it'll use in some cases more coarse satellite imagery. If I'm zoomed out, once I zoom in, it'll do better aerial imagery, something along those lines. We can see the big buildings of the downtown skyline. So that's pretty cool. We have, just free, it's assuming you didn't have to pay for the software. I mean, they're charging you for this in some way. But free aerial imagery that we can put in here. We can see what's happening. Other stuff, right, let's just find, this is the topography. I think that's what we had initially. But there's stuff when we get down here, like, look, modern, antique. What's this look like? Look at that. Look how cool that looks, right? Or I can do mid-century. which that kind of, I mean, that whole mid-century vibe, and which means like the 1950s, 60s kind of post-war, post-World War II LA. That's the vibe we're going for anyway. So that's kind of cool for this thing here. All right. So feel free again, play around with the stuff. You notice though, as I'm adding in base maps, it's getting rid of stuff, and that's maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's an issue. That's one problem though with these base maps. As cool as they can be, we have no control over them. Maybe I like this, but I don't really like, how the streets are labeled, right? Or I don't like that this is pink. I'd like to have another color for whatever the pink is supposed to be showing. I don't have any control over that. But when we get into working with actual data, which we can add with this whole add data, and I'll show you how to download this stuff from Canvas. I'll provide it to you initially. We'll spend a week where I show you where to go out into the world, via the internet, and find data that you can download and then bring in here. And that stuff, we can do whatever we want with it. We can change the color and the size and how we symbolize it. We can change the labels, and we can, most important, we can ask questions. We can manipulate the data. We can get answers from the data. So the base maps are cool, but as I said, we don't want to be dependent on these. All right, and that's another thing too. Once we start working with data, then we'll get into some of this stuff. This, selecting specific features, measuring and this kind of stuff. A whole host of things that we can do. All right, so that's that aspect. All right, as you move along here, we've got these different ribbons. All right, that you can click on any of these. Just want to point out a couple of things before I wrap this up. So we have this map right here. Okay? I could also, I can get another one in here. Let's insert this new map. So see, I've got map, and then I've got map one. So I come back here. Here's my mid-century thing, and I could even right-click. No, is it not right-click? Let me see if I can. Oh no, it's here. So I right-click over here in the contents pane, and I go to properties, and I'm going to rename it because map and map one. That's going to confuse my old brain. All right, so I'm going to call this Los Angeles, and leave all that. We'll talk about some of this other stuff in future weeks, but I'll do that. All right, and then this one. Well, hey, this will be fun. Let's zoom in to San Francisco. Okay, and I'll do a different base map, so you can go back here, add this base map, and we'll make this one, oh wait, Nova. Let's look at that. Oh, that's sexy. Look at, I gotta do that. That's like future Silicon Valley. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so I'm gonna right click on map one. I'm gonna go to properties, and I'm gonna call it San Francisco. Hold on, I see I gotta fix this. Is gonna bug me. Fix that. Okay. So I can make sense of these things, right? And don't worry, you don't have to be doing this right now. I'm just trying to show you some of the basic stuff. And as you're watching the video, if I go too fast and you're confused what I did, just hit pause, go back a few seconds, slow it down, or if this is making all sense, have me talk faster and the playback speed, whatever, right? But I'm just playing around, trying to show you stuff. But we can add these different maps, and that way I can do stuff over here, this Los Angeles one, but if there's something that's kind of connected to this same project or whatever it is I'm working on, I can make another map to do something totally different. Okay, but with these maps, this is where I'm going to be doing my analysis. Kind of the initial heavy lifting, but eventually I'm going to get to a point where I'm ready to share this with somebody, display it in some way. And so if I go back here to insert, okay, we have this option, new layout. So I'm going to click on that, and it gives me some preloaded sizes. And these connect to printers, like standard, home office printers. You can see letter size stuff, either portrait or landscape, right? And then some different sizes here. Maybe your printer can handle, maybe not. But then we get into these bigger sizes. This gets into what we call a plotter. which we don't even really have plotters so much anymore. They're just wide format printers. But these are the big things where we can actually print, the big maps you would see, on display somewhere on a wall or things we work with, in an actual office setting or something like that. We can pick any of these things. Doesn't really matter. I'm simply, in fact, since I'm not gonna worry about it, we'll do the C-sized sheet. Okay, kind of a standard thing. And it gives us a good size. That's 17 by 22. It gives us some room on which you can work. And in fact, I'll show you the difference here in a little bit. So I've got my layout. And so this is just right now a blank sheet of paper. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to take one of these maps here and I want to slap it on here. All right. So I can click this map frame, still in insert. I've got Los Angeles, I've got San Francisco, this other thing. If I had more maps, they would show up here. But let's just put in LA. It also gives me, I guess this is probably where I am right now. This is that bookmark I did. Let's do this one. So I just selected that, just left click once. And then I'm going to left click and hold and drag to the general area where I want it to go. And it's thinking, it's drawing in there. But if this is what I wanted, if this was the work I did, I would hit print and it would look just like this on the sheet of paper, right? So I could do that. And in fact, if I am happy with this, and maybe I'm not I need more stuff. Like you can see here, north arrow, scale bar. I'll show you how to use all of these things, but I can put in some map elements in here to make it look even fancier. Right? And one thing you'll notice that you won't see, let me zoom in down here. All right, let me pull this over, make sure I get all of it. There we go. So what it does by default, because I'm using this base map, it slaps this copyright stuff on here, whether I want it right there or not. That's one issue with these base maps. I think it looks so tacky. Again, we'll learn how to do stuff so that we don't have to rely on this Esri forcing things on us, right? We're going to have some agency here, but just be aware that's put on there. Some of the stuff is beyond our control, all right? But let's say we get this right. Maybe we let's put in a north arrow. One thing I'll talk about this. I don't ever want to see you using this ArcGIS North 1. Right? It's overused. Too many people use it. We'll talk about this when I talk about actual cartography. Just don't ever use it. I got problems with it. We'll talk about that more. This one's fine. I'm going to use this one. And I can click and drag, do that to put it on here, or I could just click and it would put it in the place. One thing I'll warn you, little junior geographers, is that quite often you'll do something like this and it'll look good on your screen, but when you print it, the thing is gigantic. In fact, if I move this over by the ruler over here, you can see, in fact, just to make it extra easy to, it's going to jump, you dummy. Yeah, I should have known that would happen. But anyway, this thing is over 2 inches high. That's absurd. We'd want it smaller. But again, we'll talk about all this stuff, these cartographic principles when we get there. All right, but let's just say, this map, I made it. I love it. I'm ready to share it with the world. I then can go into the share window or ribbon, right? These are ribbons. Sorry. And this is the thing. And maybe you notice this as you're watching along. These ribbons, they're dynamic. So whatever I'm working on or have selected or whatever, new things will pop up. Like you see this north arrow thing that shows up simply because I have my north arrow highlighted. Right there. This wasn't an option for me before I even put a north arrow in there. But you can go in and you can mess with stuff. Again, we'll talk about this later. But what I'm trying to get at here, but I keep getting distracted, is this share ribbon. This is when I'm done with my map or whatever product I've made in here, my visual thing that I've got. Again, there's a lot of stuff in here. But the thing you're primarily going to be doing Well, maybe you're hitting print because you're just so proud of the map you made in your geography class, and you did the 8.5 by 11, regular letter size sheet, and you're printing it at home and you're putting it up on your refrigerator. Like, go for it. Have that pride with that. That's how we would print it there. But what you'll do in this class, since we're doing it online and it's all through Canvas, is I'm going to have you export your layout, and you're going to do it not as this Adobe thing, but as a PDF. So if you click on File Type, you have options in here. I'm always going to have you use PDF because Canvas works with it well. That's why. It's easy for you to upload this and for me to see it clearly in Canvas, so I don't have to download stuff. So you're never going to be, unless I specify, but I doubt I will in this class, you're never going to be uploading your actual ArcGIS project file itself, right? You're always going to upload an exported PDF. You could also, not for Canvas, but let's say you make something, you want to share it online in some way, whether it's, again, you make this map, you're so proud, you want to make it your little desktop background thing, you could export it as a JPEG, right? Or the PNG or the GIF or whatever it might be in there. You have some options, right? Or you want to post something online and like social media and show people, go for a JPEG. Experiment with this stuff. Have at it. But you can hit PDF. You want to save it in a place where you know where you're going to find it. I'll point out some of these things as we save our first actual PDF, but for the most part, you can leave all of this as the default stuff. As long as you select PDF, you know where you're saving it, and just hit export. All right? And feel free to experiment with image quality and things like that. But as I said, I'll talk about some of this stuff as we play around with it, as we move forward. But that's how you'll be getting your work to me. You export that, go into Canvas, you click, I believe it's start assignment on any of these things. Pretty sure. I'll try to have details in Canvas itself, but then it'll say, okay, you need to upload a file. Where is it? You navigate to your computer, which you know where it is, right? Because you paid attention. And it should default, let me go over here, to this ArcGIS products. Oh, and see, this is an old one that I have here. So, I want to pay attention. I don't want to save it in this unhoused thing. I want to make sure I go in. Yeah, and that was, let me make sure I'm clear with this. I left-clicked on this browse thing, and I believe, we're going to, yes, I've got ArcGIS. Don't worry, I've got a bunch of different stuff in here from a host of things, but in projects, what did I call this one? I called it open something, right? Why am I not seeing that? You monster. Oh, no, it's right here. Okay, opening, ArcGIS. Got it, at the top. You dummy. But I can save it in here, right? Layout. I'm not even going to call it layout. I'm going to call it, in fact, I'll just call this, again, to demonstrate, good practice here. I'll just call it Los Angeles PDF. And I don't really, spaces are fine in a PDF, but it's a habit. I can't put a space in anything without feeling dirty. So hopefully you'll feel that same way. Get in the habit of not doing it. And I'll hit save. And just out of curiosity, we'll left click here. We'll go into documents, ArcGIS, projects, opening GIS. And is it there yet, or is it still thinking? Oh, wait, did I not? Hold on, I didn't actually hit export yet. So it's working. It's doing its thing. It's a big map. There we go. Look, it says it's completed. I could hit just view exported file, but since I already have this up, we'll see. Yeah, there it is. Los Angeles.pdf. I'll double click on that to open it. And it's on the other screen. Hold on. Let me bring this over so you can see it. Voila. All right, there it is. There's my little north arrow and all this stuff. And it's big. All right, you can see this 23.2% to show the whole thing. If I bring my cursor down to the left corner of Adobe, Acrobat anyway, other PDF readers, I don't know if they work this way, but if I bring it down, it shows me it's at 17 by 22 inches. So it's a bigger sheet of paper. All right, geographers, that's just some basic stuff. All right, so hopefully that made sense. Just wanted to post this up here to give you something to kind of have as a reference, just to kind of work around with it. In the next video, we'll do something more deliberate. I'll have you download some data. We'll bring that data into ArcGIS. I'll show you how to do things to it so that you can make your very first real map. No offense, this doesn't count. We did nothing with this. This next thing you're going to make, it's going to actually be you doing some work. So stay tuned for that.